I'm Katherine Johnson from Learn Behavioral. Today we're going to talk about pairing. Pairing is basically helping someone to associate something neutral with something that they love, something that's a reinforcer. So if these two things become firmly associated with one another, the thing that started out as neutral eventually becomes preferred. So pairing is something that happens in our lives whether we're aware of it or not. I used to hate the beach, but my best friend talked me into going several times in one summer, and I had so much fun with her that I started to like the beach. A lot of people have experienced eating something right before they got the stomach flu and not wanting to eat that thing ever again. That's also pairing, making you dislike something. We're going to stick to the positive side of pairing today, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 different ways to use it. Pairing to build rapport with a person, pairing to weaken a negative association, and pairing that actually creates new reinforcers. So let's start with pairing people. Skilled clinicians use pairing right away when they meet a new client for the first time and they're just developing a relationship with them. You've probably seen this. They find out what a child likes and they just surround themselves with all of their favorite things, everything and anything that's exciting, engaging, and they just play with them. Give them lots of attention, get to know them. And often they'll do that and nothing else for a while until they become a preferred person. So when your child loves your ABA session and gets excited when the staff arrive, it's because in their session they're getting fabulous reinforcers, they're feeling successful, they're getting lots of positive attention, and they're associating all of those positive feelings with their therapist. So that therapist has been paired with reinforcers and has become a reinforcer. Once physical distancing becomes a little bit looser and children can play together again, you can use pairing to make spending time with peers more desirable to your child. For children who are just learning to relate to other kids, you can simply have their peers give your child reinforcers. If your child is just starting out with play dates, keeping them short and filling them with your child's favorite treats and toys and activities is a great way to begin. Skillful classroom teachers also use pairing to help raise a child's status in the classroom. So they might take a child who's commonly overlooked by peers and give them like a really coveted classroom job or partner them up with a really high status peer. So they're essentially pairing a child with the things that the kids in the class already value and can really help with social dynamics. Another way pairing can be used is to weaken negative feelings about something. So I have a friend who told me a story about her mother did this naturally when she was a baby. So when she was a baby, she hated baths. And when they put her in the bath, she would scream bloody murder and just not stop screaming until they took her out of the bath. But she loved jam. So her mom decided she would put her in the bath, and as she opened her mouth to cry, her mom would pop a spoonful of jam in her mouth. So needless to say, shortly after her mom started doing this with every bath, she stopped crying during baths. So my mom's friend was pretty clever. I did not come by this knowledge naturally. I had to go to grad school. Once I did go to grad school, I decided to use pairing with myself to help myself clean the house. I've always hated picking up and cleaning my house, but I like having a clean house. So I decided that if I was going to have a clean house, I needed to learn to like cleaning. So I started pairing cleaning with one of 2 things. I would either call an old friend I never got to talk to or my mom, and I would talk to them the entire time I was cleaning. Or I would listen to a book on tape, which feels kind of luxurious to me. So over time, cleaning became less and less aversive to me, and eventually I even sort of started to like it. So I wouldn't say it's a reinforcer for me, but it's definitely not so bad anymore. Another example of this is a client that I had many years ago who was really motivated by praise and attention, but struggled with the motivation to do schoolwork. He really, really hated written work. It was at the right level. He was getting a lot of praise and reinforcement while he was doing the work and after he was done, but that amount of reinforcement just wasn't enough for him because it was so aversive. So I had them take all of his schoolwork and post it on a wall in the center of the house. And every time we walked by the wall, we would point to it and give him a lot of praise and talk about how much we loved it, or we would have a special snack like a bowl of ice cream and just sit in front of the wall and eat ice cream and look at your work. And it's important to note that all this intention and treats that we were giving him wasn't based on any particular action that he took or behavior or on how good the work was. We were just pairing the schoolwork itself with praise and attention. So similar to my cleaning situation, It didn't make him love written work, but it made it more tolerable for him. Now, this last part, I think, is the coolest part of pairing. You can actually take items that are completely neutral and turn them into reinforcers for kids. So this is important, right? Because the more reinforcers a kiddo has, the more motivation they have to learn. And also, I'm a firm believer that we all need to have lives full of many reinforcers just to be engaged in our world. So a lot of times, young kiddos who are starting ABA don't really care if they're praised or not, right? So one thing that clinicians will often do at the beginning when they're using super potent reinforcers, like maybe candy, is to praise the child every time they're given candy. So slowly but surely, over time, that praise becomes a reinforcer in and of itself, and eventually can function to help you teach without the candy, just praise. And we go through the same process with tokens, right? One of my favorite applications is to teach little kiddos to like age-appropriate toys. So in a school that I used to work at, where we had really little ones, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, we would have blocks of time. We started with a minute. We'd like work up to 5 minutes eventually. We'd set them in front of age-appropriate toys. So blocks, picture books, crayons and color books, cars and trucks, Duplos, and initially they had no interest. So we wouldn't be requiring them to do anything in particular. We just wanted them to be in the presence of these toys, and then we would provide reinforcement continuously. So some kids got candy or fruit or edibles. Some kids got praise. Some kids got back rubs and high fives or physical contact, whatever worked for them. So in the presence of all these age-appropriate toys, we're giving them a reinforcer every 5 seconds. So it's just this constant, like, getting something that they love in the presence of these items. Over time, they would start to play with them, and eventually they would start to request to play with them. And I can't tell you how gratifying it is to have this little 2 or 3-year-old who's becoming more and more interested in age-appropriate toys, which is going to be so useful with their social relationships with their age mates. And when it's really successful, kids start to select those items on their own and eventually will even work for them. So at that point, you've created a new reinforcer, which feels kind of like a little miracle. So as much as I love pairing, I don't want to give you the unrealistic expectation that it's easy or quick to pair things. It often takes a lot of time and a lot of repetition, but I promise that it can really be worth it. And I hope that through this video, you have been inspired to try this at home. I will see you next week, and until then, stay safe, everybody.